Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to my autobiography, The Perils of an Interesting Life. This is Chapter 8, Sage and the Army Brat. So, you kind of got to know how I ended up leaving the mountain and the ranch that we lived on before you can fully embrace the changes that I went through that landed me in the position I was in when I came to Texas. So, we had this beautiful cattle ranch on the mountain, 360-acre bowl. We had rights to 180 of it. The other 180 we could use if we wanted to, I guess. It was just there. That place was bordered on all sides by Bureau of Land Management land, federal land. So it was just like this little pocket of privately owned land surrounded by government federal land. It was so remote, so remote. I mean, it's no wonder I encountered a Bigfoot up there. See my video, my conversation with Bigfoot. But when at times when there was tension or stress on my dad financially or his career, or if he was facing failure, the old Marine did not handle failure well at all. I mean, I kind of lose gracefully. This was not in his vocabulary. Losing was not an option. We don't lose around here. Losing is for losers. Sorry. Sometimes I start to channel him. I have to reel it back a little bit. I mean that figuratively, not actually channeling him, but my memory of him is so clear. But we were struggling on the ranch, and the cows were dying, and we were losing money. We were trying to figure out a way to keep the ranch, and my mom and dad started to argue one night over something that had nothing to do with the ranch. They were arguing over some encounter or involvement with my sister and her husband, and some argument, and my parents didn't agree on how to handle it. And I think they wanted money, which was part of the problem. The old Marine didn't really have any in his well. It was all in the ranch. It was all on the hoof. And so they began to fight, and like they have in times past, when the old man was under stress or failure, he lashed out at her. My dad was not like a daily wife beater. He was a daily child beater, but he didn't beat my mom up, but once in a while. I know that sounds... Why are you laughing? I don't know, because it's so absurd. It's so absurd that I'm making excuses for him that he only beat my mother up every once in a while when he's under a whole lot of stress. But, I'll give you an instance. One of my most traumatic childhood memories, when I was about 5 years old, I saw my dad hit my mom with the 1-2 punch. She was standing on a concrete stairwell that went down a retaining wall from the back of the church parsonage. You walk down those little stairs, 4 of them, over to the church and the back door of the church. It was from our back door to the back door of the church. And she was standing on the edge of that, and my mother could be abrasive. I mean, I'm not making excuses for spousal abuse at all, but my mom could provoke Gandhi to wrath. She's just, if you ever argue with me or fight with me and I throw the rule book out the window and I'm not trying to be nice to you anymore, and it's just a prelude to me thumping you, then you'll hear the smack talk that I can talk smack. Let me tell you, I'll make you hit me. I've had guys in fights stop and go, "Wow, that's the most vile thing I've ever heard anyone say." Right in the middle of a fight. And I just step back and go, "Well, we are fighting here. I mean, we're about to fight, right?" My mom was like that, though. My mom could say some things. Well, I have emotional scars from the things she said to me. But back to the retaining wall back porch stairwell. They were fighting like that in the back porch, and she had her back to that stairwell, and he hit her with the jab, busted her lip open, and then he hit her with a right cross, right between the eyes, that launched her backwards from that position and down the stairs onto her back. And she was really boogered up, and of course it was traumatic, and I'm running to my mama, "Mama, mama, 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 you killed my mama." She's just out cold. And the hardest part of that was lying to the congregation and keeping up the story while she healed up. The story was she fell down the stairs. And I guess that's true. That's half the story. She fell down the stairs after he knocked her out, Once again, I guess I'm laughing out of nervousness, out of absurdity. But Anyway, they were having this argument. Fast forward to the ranch, and I'm 16 years old. And I kind of got one foot out the door anyway. I've already been partying. I've already met the Army brat, Kevin, which we'll talk about quite a bit in this series from here on out. He's a major role, plays a major role in my teen years. And, you know, I had a girlfriend in town, and when this fight escalated, the old Marine grabbed her in the Cobra neck choke. You know, he grabbed her in the real choke, not the Darth Vader choke, but the actual, you know, Adam's apple grab. And he had my mom like that. And he just starts laughing hysterically, like insanely. He's laughing and he's squeezing her by her throat. And I start yelling at him, you're killing her. She can't breathe. And she has this look of panic on her face because she cannot breathe. She can't scream. He has control of her throat. I know, because he taught me how to do this. I know that when you grab somebody by the throat like that, when you grab them by the Adam's apple, as it were, by the trachea, when you grab somebody by the trachea, you can crush it, and then they die. They choke, they strangle to death because they can't breathe. You can literally rip it out, you know. You can rupture it accidentally. And so I'm yelling, you're going to kill her. Stop it. You're going to kill her. And he's just laughing. And I think when I said that, he laughed more like, that's right. This time I'm going to kill her. So I did something I never did. This is the first time I ever physically stood up to the old Marine. And I was 16. I outweighed him. I was taller than him. I had a longer reach than him. I was still scared to death of him. To be honest with you, I was scared to death of the old Marine even after he had all the strokes and was laid up in a wheelchair. I still felt like he could just reach up and pull the hide right off my hand with them old, or off my arm with them old iron steel claws he had and he called hands. But, yeah, I had to make him stop. So I just jumped on his back and put him in a rear naked choke. And because I was taller than him, I could control him from above. It wasn't like I had to jump up on his back like a little kid would. I went on his back, put him in the rear naked choke, and started backing up. So, I mean, you know, he taught me well. So I had him cold in a rear naked choke. I would love to have seen the look on his face when he realized that I had turned the tables on him, and now I could kill him if I wanted to. And I won't lie to you, periodically throughout this night, I wanted to. I thought about it. But, anyway, wow, I didn't expect to talk about that in this video. So I got him in the choke, and I finally throw him onto the couch. And he tries to get up, and I shove him back down. And I go, I'm not going to stand here while you batter my mother anymore. I've had enough. And I just kept shoving him back down. And then I realized he's going to kill me tonight. This is it. This is it. He's going to go upstairs and get a gun and come back and kill me. Long story short, by then, I had already been kicked out of the overlook with all of the glass, and he had moved up there, and I was living in a camper out beside the house, out behind the house. I left that part. He kind of kicked me out in the camper and took my bedroom as punishment. But anyway, so, yeah, I decided that I better run like hell. Pardon my French. And I did, straight to the camper. Went out there and I loaded my single-shot shotgun, and I sat with it trained on the door. And I fully expected him just open up the window from that second-story room and just start drilling holes in the camper from upstairs. I figured I was a dead man. I stood up to him, and I figured he was just going to kill me for it. Well, he was telling me, I'm going to kill you, boy. I'm going to kill you. You just breathe your last breath. You done stepped in it now. And so it was a race. He raced upstairs. I raced out the door. I got my shotgun, and I waited for him. And I sat like that. 4 hours? It was 2 in the morning when I finally decided he wasn't coming for me. I went back in the house. And I won't lie to you. The devil's voice says, go upstairs and finish it. Go right up there right now and take care of this and get it over with. If you don't, he's going to kill you. But then that good angel said, no, Sage, you got a long life ahead of you. You've got a bright future. You can be anything you want to be. And these are things that the Marine did teach me. He wasn't all bad. He did good things. He's part of why I'm the man I am today. So instead, I loaded a pillowcase full of food, And I grabbed my single-shot shotgun and stuck it over my shoulder, and I walked off of the mountain 17 miles to town. Before I left, I called my sister in town and said, "That's it, I'm done, I'm leaving home, I'm walking off the mountain, you can come get me if you want." Click. And I guess I was about 6 miles down the mountain when she finally showed up to get me and take me the rest of the way into town. And, yeah, so that began my living in my car, my sleeping at different people's couches, and what they call nowadays couch surfing. But one of my first stops was to my new friend that I had made, and I'll back up and tell you how I met him. Once again, he was an Army brat, and it just seems like I always gravitate towards Army brats. Army brats are always, we have the same thing in common. A lot of you on here like me because you're an Army brat. You're a Marine Corps kid. You know what I went through, even though my dad wasn't a career military man, he was a preacher. The moving around, the erraticness of life, you know, Kevin had the same kind of history and the same story. Kevin's dad was a colonel in the National Guard in Oregon, and at the time he was the National Guard Commandant of the Pacific Northwest region. And I believe it was based out of Orville, California. His dad's still alive. He makes wooden toys and lives over in Minville. But yeah, his story was a lot like mine. His history was similar. His struggle with his dad was different. His dad was more cold and withdrawn. But yeah, Kevin and I became fast friends. The problem is, Kevin was a wild child juvenile delinquent with 1 foot ahead of the police his whole life. He told me stories I could not believe. He told me stories of dropping acid, like 3 tabs of acid, in math class in the 9th grade. You know, doing acid. He told me about doing acid in the 6th and 7th grade. In school, and that he'd been smoking pot since he was like 6 or 7 years old. That his big brothers got him into it. He was also the youngest son, just like me. So much in common, except Kevin had a little bit of a screw loose. You know, we used to fight all the time. He and I would throw down, and I remember one time I got him in a headlock. And he was just, because he would get angry, he would just lose it. He was a lot like the old Marine. He would just lose his mind, and he was not going to stop till he killed me. And because we used to just fight over the stupidest things. Whatever, if we couldn't work it out, we'd fight over it. I don't mean argue, I mean we'd fight. And so I had him in this headlock, right? And I'm squeezing his head, and I felt firmly convinced that I could just squash his head like a melon. And I had him just pinched right between my forearm and my bicep. And I was just, you know? And I'm telling him, calm down. And he was hitting me in the ribs. He was hitting me in the ribs over and over. I still have a spider vein about this big on my about 4th or 5th rib up here on the side that he put there that day in this moment. And he's just, I'm thinking he's trying to break my rib, but the way I've got him, there's no leverage. He's just battering up my flesh. And I'm telling him, stop hitting me, stop hitting me, stop hitting me. I'm going to squeeze your head till it pops like a pimple. Stop it. I'm going to squeeze your head till it pops like a grape. Stop it. And he's just pounding me. And I just keep squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. And then I felt something give in his cranium, like the plates in his brain shifted or something. Something cracked and popped in his head, not in his neck. It was right there. And I thought, I'm killing him. And when I did that, he went all limp. And I just dropped him. And he kind of laid there and you know, he was kind of half passed out, kind of goofy. It took me a while to come back up. He had a headache afterwards. Honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't think Kevin was ever right again after that. That might have been responsible for, he might have got some Dane Bramage. Love you, Kevin, but sometimes I think, brother, you got Dane Bramage. He and I were inseparable. We ran together. It was just like we were, you know, those 2 guys that were like Beavis and Butthead. We were Beavis and Butthead. We were Wayne and Garth. We were, what's the other one? Bill and Ted. And yeah, I guess he's the one that led me down the road. He's the one that helped me start this little business I had running of couriering people around to get their recreational drugs purchased. But he kind of lynched me, not lynched me, and was it? I won't make excuses for myself. I willingly went along with a plot to do some burglaries and be the getaway car driver. And, you know, it was just getting money for parties. We would have these epic parties. His mom and dad lived in this beautiful Bavarian-style home in the middle of a pear orchard. It was hundreds of acres of pears all around it. It was right on the edge of town. Really, it was just a stone's throw from Harry and David's. And this was a beautiful place. And it had a long driveway with a zigzag bar ditch on it. With a long zigzag driveway with deep bar ditches on both sides. That's what I'm trying to say. And I know because my car ended up sideways in one of those, up on its side, and a bunch of guys we turned it over and picked it up and put it back on the road. I got about 12 guys on it. We just physically picked up my Pinto and put it back on the road after I dumped it in the ditch, drinking and driving one night. But we would have these epic parties because his dad, the colonel, would often go away to Germany on trips, and he would be gone for a month. And one time he was gone for 6 weeks. And we had a 5.5-week-long party. And the only reason it wasn't a 6-week-long party is it took us half a week to get it started. It was epic. It was something you make movies about. Hundreds of people attended the parties, that party in particular. I think if you were alive in 85, if you were alive in Medford and partying during that period of time, you were in that house. You probably ended up there. And there were so many stories to be told. I could do videos just on this party. In fact, I'm going to do a video, I think, just on this party. I guess the big hook is that my mom was always looking for me, you know, after I left home and I was staying at different people's houses, and I never checked in. They didn't know where I was, and she had visions of me being dead on the side of the road. And so she would track me down. She would be like a gumshoe. She would go and ask people, knock on doors. She did this when my sister was a teenager too. I remember I was with her going around trying to find out what group of hippies my sister ran off with. So she came looking for me. And it was the morning after one of these epic nights of partying. It was a Sunday morning. And just to be quite frank, everyone was pretty much naked. Now, I was by myself once again. I did not have good luck with girls until later on. But I was upstairs in the high loft bedroom up there by myself, sound asleep, when I hear my mom's car pull up. Now, this was a 3-story house, so I'm way up in the belfry, right? I'm up at the top of this chalet-style home. And anyway, I hear her little car come up the driveway, and I can distinctly, I know the sound of her car. And I hear it come up, and I'm like, oh, crap, my mom's here. Ah! What am I going to do? Oh, mom's here. How did she find me? How did she find me? And then I think, oh, my God, downstairs. What's going on downstairs? The party last night was epic. I know there's naked people and booze and drugs, and it's just, what is she going to find? What's going on down there? And it's probably about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, so we couldn't have been asleep more than 3 hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours since the party kind of wound down. And some guy I don't even know, some big tall guy in his mid-20s, stands up because she's knocking on the door, and I'm running down the stairs. I'm like, I gotta get there before somebody else answers the door. I gotta be the one that answers the door. My mom can't see this. And this guy's downstairs, and he's a big tall guy with long hair and physically fit dude, and he's bare ass naked. He's just nude as they come. And he goes to the door, and he just opens the door, and he's just swinging. You know, he's just standing there in front of my Pentecostal preacher mama. Oh my gosh. Oh, I was so embarrassed. I run up, shoulder check him out of the way, slam the door behind me. Yeah, she was just checking on me. She had to know where I was at. I think that's when she finally figured out some funky stuff was going on with me for sure. But Kevin and I had many adventures. You know, that month, that like 5.5 week long party was, I'm gonna do a video on it. If I can remember it, a lot of stuff happened. A lot of stuff happened in that house. But my mom and dad's relationship was just getting worse and worse. And this is where I have to kind of, you're gonna see me throwing the old Marine under the bus a little bit. But I believe that my dad had multiple affairs down through the years, that it was just kind of, he believed men, that's their right, they can do that, and it really isn't any of your wife's business what you do. A very old school chauvinist way of thinking. And in fact, when the thing he was arguing about when he hit my mother when I was 5 years old and knocked her down the stairs was an affair that she was accusing him of having, and I actually outed him because he kind of used me as an alibi. but he was having an affair with the church secretary, and my mom was accusing him of that, and that's why he hit her. And so fast forward, you know, here I am living the wild life, and my mom and dad's relationship is on the rocks, and I really didn't even know it. One day I finally did come home just to check in, plus I was hungry. I was looking for a free meal, and I come in the door, and my dad is sitting at the table like this. He just looks like he lost his best friend. And I said, "What's wrong with you?" He said, "I can't believe she did it." "I can't believe she did what?" "I can't believe she did it." I'm like, "What did she do?" He goes, "She got in my safe and she took all our money. She took all our money. I can't buy a cup of coffee. I don't have anything. She took it all. I can't believe she did it." So my mom took the money and ran. I was not really privy to the breakup of my parents' marriage at that moment, but because it was happening and I had my own life and my own stuff and my own things going on. But he left and went to parts unknown. And my most heartbreaking moment is that I always, believe it or not, I would have always chosen to live with my dad. I didn't trust my mom to be able to take care of me. My mom was a sweetheart, but you know, she needed someone to take care of her. How could she take care of me? And that's how I felt about her at the time. 83 now, working 2 jobs. My mom take care of herself, but I didn't feel that way at the time. And the old Marine was leaving, and you know, he had his camper hooked up. He sold the old plywood boat that we built together. If you watch this channel, you know he and I built a boat together when I was 6 or 7. And anyway, yeah, he was ready to pull out, and I was like, "I'm going with you, Dad. I'm going with you. Where are we going?" Because I always believed there was no doubt in my mind. He knew this. He knew I always would go with him. And he said, "Boy, go with your mother or go your own way, but you're not going with me. I got things to work out and I need to be alone and you're not invited." And I watched him drive away. So I had a sister who was going through a divorce of her own, and her husband had left her and moved off to Texas, and they had reconciled, and she had left in the middle of the night with her and her kids and reunited with him in Dallas-Fort Worth, and left her home completely completely just, there were still cereal bowls on the table from the morning that they left. And moldy milk, you know, rotten milk and stuff on the table. It was just the food in the refrigerator was rotten. She just left it all there and split with the clothes on her back and her kids in a suitcase. So she paid me and my buddy Kevin $100 a piece and paid our expenses to have a yard sale, sell everything in her house that wouldn't fit into a U-Haul, and bring the basics of her home and her keepsakes in this U-Haul to Texas. And that's how I got to Texas. I had a job getting my sister relocated. This is a rambling video. There's a lot more to tell. I'm probably going to come back and revisit me and the Army Brat and talk more about our adventures as they spring to mind. My life took a radical change and a radical turn, but it would lead me to some of my greatest adventures, some of my greatest achievements, and my life as a musician. All right, thanks for watching my autobiography. See you next time on the Perils of an Interesting Life.